All right, everybody. The results are in from this weekend's poll. So we had 275 people participate as of about 8:55 a.m. on Monday, February 8th, 2021, guys. So the poll question, if you remember, this is what was asked. I said, in 2020, which grouping of the following players finished top 20 in both vertical route stems such as post routes, fade routes, and go routes, and also finished top 20 in back shoulder fades? Here were your options, guys, and here's what everyone chimed in on. 60% of participants said Devontae Smith and Tylan Wallace. 14% of participants said Rashad Bateman and Tamarion Terry. 11% of participants said DeMonte Coxie and Josh Palmer. 9% of participants said Dyami Brown and Jalen Darden. 7% of participants said Jonathan Adams Jr. and Seth Williams. The correct answer, guys, goes to those 7% of participants who said Jonathan Adams Jr. and Seth Williams. Congratulations if you were part of that 7%. You won the trivia, guys. Awesome job. You guys are on it. You know your players pretty well from college, guys. So congrats on that. And with that, guys, today's topic, listen, we're going to talk a little bit about targets between running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers, where Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz were targeting players. All right, y'all. Let's get into it. What's up, Eagles Nation? What's going on, NFL World? How you doing, Division Rivals? This is Steven Hyder with Gate City Sports Channel, the sports channel where the cerebral NFL fan comes for about 10 minutes of daily content. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever did you get around to watching this. Once again, guys, my name is Steven Hyder, and this is Gate City Sports Channel. All right, guys, that Super Bowl was, wasn't quite as close as I was expecting it to be. I thought that was going to be a much better game than what it turned out to be, but, look, it's a pretty good lesson that even really good quarterbacks, great quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes, man, if your line ain't right, it's really hard to perform in the NFL, man. And I will say some of what was going on with Patrick Mahomes was just more than the line play. I think his foot, obviously needing that surgery on the toe, I think that's playing a role because you could definitely see that he just wasn't planting his foot correctly. He was underthrowing some balls. I mean, you could see that it was causing issues with his footwork, and as a result, he became very inaccurate. I mean, that was my thoughts on the game. Tom Brady picking up his 7th, championship. Yeah, it is what it is, guys. All right, y'all. Today's topic, I want to get into basically targets. Where did these quarterbacks, who do they target? Running backs, tight ends, wide receivers. All right, guys. Let's jump right into it. And let's talk about who was targeted out of the position groups by each of these quarterbacks. Let's get it. The 2020 Philadelphia Eagles offense, guys, it was very vertical. This was a very vertical-based concept offense. So it's not shocking to me when I look at Carson Wentz's targets, I see exactly where he targeted the most, and it's wide receivers at 215. So 122 completions on 215 attempts. In terms of the on-target to attempts, he was 142 throws that were on target to 215 attempts. He had 1,377 yards passing, 971 of those yards being air yards. It's a very vertical if you look at the percentage there. 8 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. Carson struggled throwing outside, and a lot of that has to do with the footwork, guys. His footwork is bad, and if your footwork's off, it's harder to throw outside. When you're just completely really talented with your arm talent, then, I think it's easier for those guys to throw across the middle just because they have arm talent that other guys don't have. But really good mechanical guys are good at the underneath stuff and then the outside stuff. Completion percentage, 56.7% for wide receivers, 66.4% in terms of the on-target to the wide receivers. Yards per average was 6.4, and his independent quarterback rating, which is a rating that comes up with situational circumstances that Sports Info Solutions has. It's a proprietary thing of theirs. They had him at a 68.5 was their rating for it. The next most targeted group would be the tight ends. 83 of 125, 83 attempts on 83 completions on 125 attempts. Kind of works his way all out, guys, in terms of on target as being 87 on target to 125 attempts. 917 yards, 608 air yards. If you look at the percentage between air yards now to the total yards, I think you can see there's a little more air yards involved with the tight ends here. 7 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. He had a yard per average of 7.3. And an independent quarterback rating from Sports Info Solutions of 97.5. By far his best rating, guys. Like, we all know that he loves to work the middle of the field, and he loves throwing the tight ends and certain types of receivers, guys, like big possession type receivers and a guy that can get vertical. You know, he likes having kind of a mix there. Running backs. 45 of 76 on the season, guys. 45 completions, 76 attempts. On target, 48 on target throws to 76 attempts. 323 yards, only 5 air yards. Interesting. 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. His completion percent being 59.2%. His on-target percent being 63.2%. His yard per average only being 4.3. And his independent quarterback rating was a 74.3, throwing to running backs, guys. Flipping it over and talking about Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts on the 2020 season. So, the most targeted group here was wide receivers, which is not, shouldn't be a big question. Like I said, this was very much a vertical-based offense that Doug built. 40 out of 70. So 40 completions on 70 attempts. 45 to 70 in terms of on-target attempts. 45 to 70. 45 on-target throws to 70 attempts. 668 yards. 425 air yards. 6 touchdowns. 3 interceptions. A 57.1% completion rate. A 66.2% on-target rate. A 9.5 yard per average. And then an independent quarterback rating, Sports Info Solution came up with a 93.8 for Jalen Hurts. He did very well throwing outside to the receivers. I also think that they did a really good job of scheming and scripting things. And that's, to me, that's encouraging when you look at Nick Sirianni, because Nick is going to scheme a lot of things when it comes to the receivers and the running backs. So I feel good about that. Tight ends on the season. They were the second most targeted group. It was 23 completions on 44 attempts. In terms of the on-target throws, there were 30 on-target throws to 44 attempts. 285 yards. 182 of those yards being air yards. 0 touchdowns. 1 interception. A 52.3% completion rate, but a 71.4% on-target rate. 6.5 yards per average. And an independent quarterback rating of 59.7. He wasn't quite as good at targeting the tight ends, but I don't think he was bad. I think what's really weighing down that quarterback rating is the interception. I think if he didn't have a 0-to-1 touchdown interception ratio there, that wouldn't be hampered so low. Running backs. 14 completions on 20 attempts for the season, guys. 14 to 20 in terms of the on-target to attempt. 108 yards. Negative 24 air yards. Clearly, running backs were targeted behind the line of scrimmage, guys. 0 touchdowns. 0 interceptions. A completion percent of 70. So 70% completion rate. An on-target percent of 70. 5.4 yards per average. And an independent quarterback rating of 92.4. Pretty good. Those are the numbers, guys. That's how each position group breaks down. That's the hard line data here. And from here, guys, I would want to get into some concluding thoughts, right? To kind of talk about what this system and scheme is going to mean with Nick Sirianni in light of the numbers we now have between the way these quarterbacks targeted position groups, between wide receiver, running back, and tight end. All right, y'all. Final thoughts. All right. Here are my final thoughts. So, if Carson Wentz was going to be on this football team, one would think that they're going to do a lot to scheme stuff for tight ends and then work those receivers in a little bit, right? They're still, I'm not going to say they wouldn't just completely go away from the running backs, but they might have been lighter on the running backs than what you were used to seeing in Indianapolis and in LA. Still much higher than what we've seen previously, but not to the top 5 potentially numbers there, right? With Jalen in there, I would probably argue that they might be a little lighter on tight ends than what we think. maybe a little more heavier on utilizing the running backs and the receivers. There's a lot that can happen in between the lines here, guys. I mean, you have an off season, you got coaches that can work with them. Maybe they have these hard set core principles of certain plays they want to run, and they need you to focus on tight ends, or they need you to focus on running backs, and they're going to work on getting you there. That's always to kind of account for, but I will definitely say that with Jalen in the game, he's very good at targeting the running backs. They definitely got some yardage off of him, and you can see it was all behind the line. You can tell that by the air yard number, and then they got a lot of yardage from that. He's probably not the greatest at targeting the tight ends right now, because the younger you are, the harder it is to get the ball across the middle of the field. But he did a really good job of hitting receivers on very well-defined plays. So if you got a highly scripted offense like Nick Sirianni that utilizes all these components, I think he could be quite successful. So these are my thoughts, guys. Leave your thoughts down below. What did you guys think about this? These are our numbers from last year. What do you guys think about the system and scheme here? With Jalen Hurts coming in, who knows who the backup's going to be? Who knows? I mean, at this point, really don't even know who the starter's going to be. But let's just assume Jalen Hurts, guys. With the running backs, the tight end numbers, the receiver numbers you see, knowing a little bit I've shared with you guys about Nick Sirianni's scheme, what do you guys think here, guys? What are your thoughts here? Do you think there's going to be, a lot of kind of shifts and movements that maybe we didn't see prior, before he used to use a lot of 3-by-1 sets instead of shifts and movements? But we can see on Jacoby Brissett, there was a lot of play action. There was a lot of RPOs. Do you guys anticipate there being more of a Jacoby Brissett style of offense that Nick Sirianni and Frank Reich ran, as opposed to what we saw underneath Andrew Luck and Phillip Rivers? All right, guys. Leave your comments down below. See you on the next video. Don't forget, if you want to support the channel, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Peace, y'all. I'm out of here.